people living in that
100%.
house.
100%.
Right. Well, I see now what happens, and I've noticed, I think there's school portables that are used for bunkhouses around the county.
Right.
And are they restricted to 4 people? Or do they have, how many can have?
So it's a plethora of options, or a variable, I should say, that go into determining how many people can go into, whether it's a portable or an attachment on a barn or a pre-existing building that's there wherever. But whether it's airspace square footage, but the big determinant is, of course, the liters per day that's coming out of it. But what we're trying to do with this is making sure that the houses that otherwise wouldn't be filled with people, or that previously were filled with people, we can keep up to date and house workers in it.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Oliver?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is somewhat similar, Dusty. Is the maximum of 4 unrelated persons in the house, albeit the former house that might have housed a family of 10 or 12, even 6-bedroom was your example.
Yeah.
And maybe I should know this, but is that a Norfolk County bylaw policy, or is that a Ontario building code
That's Ontario building
policy?
code.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, and it's an arbitrary number.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. So the best that we could do as council would be to lend our support
Yes,
to our Ag Advisory and others to try and lobby the province to make some changes.
100%.
Thank you.
And especially as on, like with Norfolk County using the most amount of bunk houses in the province, if it's not us, it's no one else.
Okay. Further questions to Mr. Zavic? No? Okay. Can I have a mover and a seconder to receive the deputation? Mayor Luke, and seconded by Mr. Doug Brunton. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Black.
Well, I understand what the problem is, and on the surface, I guess, yeah, I agree with all of that. But I'm unfortunately not an agricultural person, and I would like to be able to make an informed decision. Is it possible, Mr. Chairman, to get a staff report on this, outlining all the whys and wherefores and how we should proceed with this? Is at the moment, maybe, you know, I'm sure you understand it way more than I do, but I don't. So is that a possibility?
Councillor Black, this has been a topic of discussion around the table of the Ag Advisory Board for several months. Mr. Enslin and others at the planning department have been involved, and we've come to this bottleneck with respect to provincial legislation. So I'm going to ask the CAO here to comment on that, or Mr. Baird is going to comment on it.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. That's a good question. I know Clark Hoskin has done a lot of work, as have our planners, as part of the official plan review, and the Ag Advisory Board, and Brett as well. I mean, he's sort of leading the charge, very forward-thinking. We'd be prepared to take that as direction, to prepare a report with some of the background, the key issues, that council would then be able to make an informed decision, and it might help to frame a letter to whichever the recipient is, which ministry and so on, to perhaps lobby or leverage some sort of decision or reconsideration for those policies as they exist today. Mr. Cribbs had just informed me, as part of the resolution that Dusty had mentioned about engaging the CAO, it was essentially to also have Nicholas, our solicitor, do some work with the staff so they can look at some legal context to that as well. So we're glad to do that. It's probably just a matter of time. We've got a lot on our plate, but we do know it's an important issue, has been on the agenda for some time. We will do our best to get something back to you at the earliest opportunity. I wouldn't want to suggest, you know, back in 2 weeks or anything like that, but I think anytime you ask, you do want that information as soon as you can. So we'll commit to that, absolutely.
Could it also include, with your report, the resolutions? Because I know I probably read them in the advisory body, but if they could be brought forward and included in your report.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'm just trying to recall, I'm not sure if the minutes, I think were in last week's agenda.
Yeah.
So it's just a follow-up. So you're right. That's we always do make reference to the recommendations from your advisory boards. They're the reason that trigger staff reports, to get their recommendations to you.
Okay.
In case there's any action required.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Oliver?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a further thought on this, and I agree with everything that's been said. Last week at the SCORE annual general meeting, the president of the OFA was one of the speakers, and I think that is another group that should be lobbied. They're probably already on this program in terms of supporting what Ag wants to do, but at the very least, I think we as councillors in the county should be approaching the OFA and even the Norfolk Federation of Agriculture as the local affiliate to make sure they are doing the same kind of lobbying. And from a timing perspective, this could very well, at least here in the riding of Haltom and Norfolk, be a provincial election issue that I think we should be aware of and going after, not going after, but talking to candidates about their position on this. Because it's obviously important to agriculture in this county.
Right, I think there will be some all candidates meetings in the area. Okay, is there anyone else wish to speak to this? No. So I believe this probably will include the Ministry of Municipal Affairs because it's the building code, the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change, and the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs are the key people to get to. So we're giving direction. Do I need a mover? A mover and a seconder to give direction, Councillor Geisens and Councillor Wells. Those in favor? Okay, so we'll be getting a report on that in the near future. Thank you, Dusty, for coming forward, and Brett. We'll now move our next deputation, and could you leave a copy of your presentation with the clerk here, Dusty? Our next deputation is from Miss Patty O'Reilly. She is representing the Amazing Places. If you could come to the podium. Patty, you have 10 minutes, and I'll signify to you at 1 minute left. Okay.
I'll try to keep it to 5. I know you folks are busy, and thank you very much for having us the opportunity to come and present about our amazing places. So for technology, all I have to do is hit next. So great, thank you. Anyways, I am Patty O'Reilly. I am the Sustainable Tourism Coordinator for the Long Point World Biosphere and in charge of our Amazing Places projects. We're here tonight to ask Council to support adding the Adawandran Cycling Tour to our Amazing Place program. It will be the 20th Amazing Place. And we are committed to promoting sustainable tourism. I know you have it in front of you, so I won't read every last word. And I know that you have a full report from Clark, and he did a very thorough job. So thank you, Clark. Very detailed. Okay. This is the map of the Long Point World Biosphere, and what is important is that Norfolk County is considered the zone of cooperation, and we are fortunate to live in a biosphere that is internationally recognized by UNESCO. It started, the Amazing Places started in the Bay of Fundy. It came out light as part of concern for that the national parks were being overused, and they wanted to create a branding program that would divert some of the folks from the high usage area and allow people to enjoy other parts of their province that had amazing places. And we provide opportunities for business organizations and entrepreneurs to partner. There's a specific criteria to become an amazing place. We started in 2014, and what is important is that we have set a high standard of criteria for our amazing places. We are partner with 2 other biospheres in Ontario. With the Georgian Bay Biosphere and the Frontenac Arch Biosphere, and we collaborated to create the brand in Ontario. We have completed many activities over the course of the 4 years to recognize amazing places. 4 of the properties were recognized in 2016 were already Norfolk County properties. They include Quants Park and Mill, the Port Rowan Wetlands, the Waterford Heritage Agriculture Museum, and the Port Dover Harbor Museum as well. So we created a bunch of activities to showcase our suite of activities. The goal was to create linkage between our amazing places, promote awareness and education opportunities, and to have folks see them as a collective as opposed to individuals. Some of the activities we did was Meet the Locals Norfolk campaign, which was last summer. It created education awareness of our local flora and fauna, and we did that through passports and people taking pictures and submitting them. It also helped folks to learn and get educated about our local flora and fauna. That's a map of our locations currently. That was an example of the passport. I know the writing's small, but each of our 19 amazing places identified their top 10 locals that people were to go out and learn about and discover. Those are our 19 amazing places, and in red is our Attawandaron cycling tour that we would like to add this year to our suite. The name came from the Indigenous people, First Nations, who lived here. We reached out to our First Nations through the Woodland Cultural Center, and Paula Whitlow, who's the executive director, responded when we inquired about the name and the use, thought it was a fabulous opportunity, and thanked us for reaching out. She considered it an incredible tribute to rename the old Indian Trail in honor of the First People. That tract of land was used quite heavily in the 15 and 1600s by the Attawandaron. They referred to themselves, and I did not get the proper pronunciation, so forgive me, the Shawnaton people, which meant the people of the deer. They were considered the neutral nation between the warring Hurons and Iroquois because they traded with both of them and lived a peaceful life here. And what we like most about it is that they lived in harmony with nature and did not significantly alter the landscape, which sticks with the Long Point biosphere's kind of mottos. Do not leave a footprint. Bicycling tours, those are some of the benefits of the cycling. It's a booming industry, and we in Norfolk County has a significant opportunity to increase our share of the market, and we strongly feel that the Amazing Place is a great way to promote it. We have opportunities to partner with local businesses, entrepreneurs, to create adventure packages for one day, one weekend, and 1 week adventures down here. Norfolk County and the biosphere is a beautiful place to live and play, and we certainly want to have an economical impact by encouraging tourists to come and helping our young folks stay in Norfolk by creating their own businesses that will create packages and experiences where they can have an experience for one day at Amazing Place or a weekend at Amazing Place. We had a workshop in February that brought the Amazing Places together, and I know there's 3 or 4 groups now working on some packages that will be supported through Ontario Tourism, through blogs, and encouraging folks to come here. The Pathways for People are committed to in-kind support for the Attawandaron Trail, and Frank's here in support of us. I think there's a letter of support from them. They also support this great opportunity for us. One of the greatest things is that it can become a national bucket list for folks with the biospheres. There are also biospheres in BC that are starting the Amazing Place tour. So I think it's a growing brand, and I can see all the biospheres eventually joining and becoming Amazing Places Canada, and gives people not only here in Ontario but in Canada and international a chance to explore and enjoy what Norfolk County has to offer. Thank you.
Okay, ready for questions. Councillor Black.
Mr. Chairman, and I guess I heard you pronounce the word Attawandaron.
Yes.
Is that the correct pronunciation?
The best we know,
Oh, the
yes.
best you know, okay. But I know in the report, in the recommendation, it says subject to positive feedback from the First Nations. It sounds like,
We have,
I guess when we get to the report, I'll ask Clark why we even need that there, if that's the case. But anyway, thank you.
Councillor Oliver?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Patty, my question relates partly to your presentation and partly to what's in the report, but I like the name Attawandaron Cycling Tour. That's appeared in your presentation, the graphics, and,
Yes.
and that is what this would be called, or it would be called the Attawandaron Route.
we have some agreement. The suggestion for the tour became from the biosphere as a recommendation and from Pathways for People because cyclists see, I was told cyclists see a route as something that isn't appealing or doesn't clarify for cyclists, where the tour means you actually get to tour the area on a cyclist.
That's my point exactly. So
Yes.
when we get to the report and I see the terminology and the recommendation, we may have to change that.
Yes.
I like the Attawandaron Cycling Tour. Our priority first and foremost is to promote this amazing place as a tourist attraction, of course, and I think that's what
Absolutely.
we've got to be mindful of as well. So
Yes.
thank you for that clarification.
Okay. Next. Questions? No? Okay.
Yeah. That was either really good or really bad.
Okay. Very good. Precise.
Thanks.
And can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Black and Geisens moves that we receive the deputation of Miss Patty O'Reilly regarding the amazing places. Those in favor? That is carried, Deputy Clerk. And where do we go from here? We have a staff report. Who's doing that? Clark?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I won't go on and read the report to you. You've pretty well had all you need to know. I will answer questions. The three things I did want to mention were that there is no financial cost to the county for this designation, that we aren't renaming any roads, so this is a designation, not a road renaming, and that we do want to move on this so we can promote it for this tourist season. And so the reference to the First Nations was, we have reached out to First Nations. We haven't received any kind of official response, nor do we know if we'll receive any official response. I just want to make sure that we were being respectful to that aspect of the name. And in terms of the difference between a route and a tour, the reason why I used the word route in the report was that a tour in the tourism industry often implies a planned or viable experience. So someone will see you promoting a cycling tour and they're going, okay, who do I call to sign up for it? And who do I pay? Who's the leader? Who's the organizer? A tour implies that. A route means it's a collection of roads. And so you can do it as a self-guided tour, or you can organize a tour. But like as I say, a tour tends to be a tourism product that is already organized and ready to go. So that's why I was recommending calling it a route. So apart from that, if you have any other questions.
Questions? Councillor Oliver, start with you.
Clark, do you feel, well, I guess two things with respect to your last comments. Do you feel that it would be a disservice to what we're trying to do to change it from a route to a tour, first of all? Because I agree, I understand your point, but I still think it will appeal to the tourist more as a cycling tour. And secondly, the word cycling, which I think is pretty important to have as part of the amazing place. So if you're not hung up on those two words, then I'm great. I'm happy with the recommendations.
Yeah, no, I'm not hung up on the wording. I'm just explaining, expectations of people. That's all. If they call and want to know where to book it, we'll just have to explain that it's just a route. So, it'll be a matter of explaining it.
Councillor Brunton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Clark. Clark, I noticed I'm on page 30 of your report, and I noticed on there's, of the 19 listed under amazing places, there's a few of them that are private businesses. Do they pay a fee for that, or is it all free?
Through the chair, that's something that's arranged with the biosphere, so they handle that. Now, as far as I know, they do the same thing as we're doing. They are entering into an agreement. There isn't any particular fee involved. It's just an agreement that everyone knows what everyone's doing.
Okay, and I guess on the same note, on that route, can other businesses, if they wish, could they get on the list? Was that possible?
Yeah, the amazing places are all chosen by the biosphere, so if they wanted to assign new ones, they would have to go and apply or talk to them about it. I
Okay.
suspect likely they're not going to be naming any new ones, but that would be something Patty would need to answer.
We were quite happy with 20. We feel that fulfills our need and any more Washington would be significant in place.
Ms. O'Reilly mentioned that they're happy with just the 20 at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. No further questions for Clark? No? Okay. Clark, I do have one. These signs, are they going to be posted on each of the 20 sites? Amazing Places sites?
Mr. Chair, there will be no signage. It will just be a designation placed on our website and on our tourism guide map. So it'll be, currently the route is noted on our map. We'll just be changing the name of it, but we won't be erecting any signage.
Okay, I was at a sign shop this past week and I saw some signs with Amazing Places printed, so where are those signs going?
Patty, you want to come on up?
Sorry, a little shorter. Through our funding projects, each amazing place, we had $500 to create signage for some of our amazing places. Some choose to add to the cost and be more elaborate. And last year, when we got the 9 from 2016, the signage has been designed and was ready to be picked up, but then winter hit, so they will be installed this spring. And we hope, I missed in my presentation, if we have your support, we will be hosting an activity event in May to launch our newest amazing place so that our suite is full, and to invite folks to come to it. And we're also, we'll be having our second Amazing Place bus tour May 23rd. Last year we visited 8 amazing places in the east, and we'll be visiting 6, and I know Mr. Columbus and Mr. Luke, Mayor Luke, attended and had participated in that, so they get a sense of how we come together and promote. Is that it?
Thank you, Patty. Councilor Black to Clark?
Just, I've heard the number 20 here. I'm only seeing 19. Is there a 20th?
This would be
The
20th.
Attawandan route is the 20th.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Anything further? No. Okay, Clark, thank you. We need a mover and a seconder for the recommendation as printed on page 29. Mayor Luke and Councilor Black. I will read the recommendation. That report DCS 1819 be received, and that Norfolk County Council endorses the designation of the county roads outlined in the staff report as an amazing place by the Long Point World Biosphere Reserve, and that the sightseeing route encompassed by the roads be named the Attawandan route, subject to the positive feedback from First Nations. And further, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the memorandum of understanding for Amazing Places site partners. Mayor Luke.
Well, I know, Mr. Chair, that my colleague here would like the word tour instead of route.
Okay.
I personally, and again, I'm not going to lose any sleep. Personally, I like the word route. And I just want to say that whatever council decides, I'm not going to lose sleep. But I like the idea that this is a bicycle route. It's a trail. It's not a tour. It's a tour if it's one event, but it is a bicycle route, bicycle path, trail, whatever you want to call it. So I think I have to agree with Clark on this. I think this is a route that we would be offering people that want to follow all of it or part of it. But again, amendments in order, I don't mind that at all. I'm not going to get tied up on one word. I just prefer that this is a route.
Okay, we'll go to Councilor Oliver.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to contradict my mayor on this. I'm just going to ask for a friendly amendment that we add the word cycling. So it would be the Attawandan cycling route. I think that will accomplish the promotional part that I was concerned about when I made my point. So that would just be a friendly if the mover and seconder are willing.
Okay,
Well,
we had a mover and a seconder. I believe it was Mayor Luke and Councilor Oliver, right?
I'd like the word, Councilor Black.
Councilor Black, was it? Okay.
I have no problem, I like the word cycling added. I really do.
Okay, so it's Atawandron Cycling Route. Okay, everybody understand that? Any further discussion, Councilor Black?
Well, what I really find amazing about this, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong here, if you go down to number 17, the Sutton Conservation Areas is now on this list of amazing places in Norfolk County. And as you all know, this used to be a pond with a dam, and it was taken out and turned into a more wooded area and a cold water stream. And of course, you know, when we did it, there was a lot of controversy about doing that. But now, here we are, we have it on this list as an amazing place. I also find it interesting that some of the people at Mill Pond, the new people that are coming in to live there and overlook the Sutton Conservation Area, actually move there because they prefer that conservation or wooded look. So over time, you know, you'd get a sort of different clientele that appreciates something a little bit different. And I think this is the proof of it, that it's on the list as an amazing place. There's only 20 in all of Norfolk County, and here it is.
Okay. Anything further? Yes, Councilor Geisens.
Can I ask a question? How long is the tour or whatever? How many kilometers?
How many
or-
kilometers?
Sorry?
Number of kilometers?
122.
122 kilometers.
I know.
It's just a nice day's
You
walk.
call that a tour?
You got that a tour?
You might be right.
Okay, you've all heard you've got the recommendation in front of you, and the change was Atawandron Cycling Route. We'll call the vote. We did a mover and a seconder. Those in favor? Carried unanimously.
Take me at least a couple hours to do.
Okay, we're moving on to the next item here. We'll go to staff reports, the tax arrears update and changes in legislation on page 49 of the agenda package. All right, that's Treasurer's Office. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Through the chair to committee, I'd like to introduce this report that you probably all had a chance to read. And basically, it is to introduce council to 3 significant changes in tax collection that became effective as a result of the passing of Bill 68. The most significant change is reducing the amount of time before a tax sale process can begin from 3 years down to 2 years. With the current staff resources that we have now, I feel we have a very good program in place, a well-oiled machine, and it works well. But we are looking for direction to proceed with discretion, with the treasurer or tax collector's discretion, to proceed in some instances where property is 2 years in arrears, and where it makes good sense to do so. An example would be perhaps commercial or industrial property whose tax arrears are approaching the potential sale value. So there's merit in selling sooner than later to attract a suitable buyer. What I'm not proposing is that we initiate tax sale for all properties 2 years in arrears. Number one, I don't believe with our current resources that's a manageable amount of properties. But what I would like to do is include those properties that are 2 years in arrears in our communication plan, reach out to those owners, try to set them up with payment plans so that the sooner they can address the arrears, the more manageable and affordable those payments can be. The second most significant change to the Municipal Act with tax collection has to do with extension agreements. Council may recall in the past, staff would bring forward a report to committee asking for a bylaw to be passed by council for the mayor and clerk to authorize entering into an extension agreement This would allow a person whose property that has a tax arrears certificate registered against it, would allow them the ability to make payments and avoid push off the time for tax sale, allow them to make partial payments, and ultimately avoid going to tax sale. So the Municipal Act no longer requires that a bylaw be passed in order to initiate an extension agreement, and staff is asking for the ability for the treasurer or tax collector to enter into those extension agreements on behalf of the county. And the third significant change has to do with what's referred to as payments in and out of court. In the past, if there were excess funds after a tax sale, they were paid into Superior Court of Ontario, and after 1 year, potential claimants could make application. If they didn't, if there was no claims and there was money left over, the municipality could also apply for those funds. The recent change to the Municipal Act takes that ability away from municipalities. It also increases the length of time that the province holds on to those funds, allowing claimants to come forward. So they've changed from 1 year, and they now have up to 10 years to notify the court if they feel they should have access to those funds. And with that, I'd be happy to answer questions.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Bugner, for your report. Moving on to questions. Questions for Sue? No? Guess you're off easy. Okay, we have a recommendation before us. Yes, Mayor Luke?
Chair, I'd be pleased to move the recommendations.
Moved by Mayor Luke, seconder, Councillor Black. I'll read it. That report FS 1805, legislative changes to tax collection be received, and that the treasurer and/or tax collector may prepare and register tax arrears certificates against the title to land in accordance with Section 3731 of the Municipal Act 2001, and that the treasurer and/or tax collector be authorized to enter into extension agreements on behalf of the municipality in accordance with Section 378 of the Municipal Act 2001, and that policy FS03, tax collection policy, be updated to reflect the changes in the Municipal Act 2001 as a result of Bill 68, modernizing Ontario's Municipal Legislation Act 2017. Mayor Luke?
Well, if I could speak in favor of this, and again, feel like we should be asking some questions, but with the exception of the province getting the money from the tax sale that isn't taxes, I agree with this. And I just wanted to say that in having on behalf of council in the past 3 years of signing these extension agreements, that staff arranges with people that are arrears for years. Mr. Chair, to let your taxes go 3 years, and I certainly understand that there are financial reasons why people do, but when I see some of the repayments that are arranged over the next 3, 4, 5 years, it's awful, it's horrendous, the size of these payments. I don't know how, I can sort of understand why people let their taxes go for 3 years, but I don't know how you can afford to do that if you're going to end up having to add those back taxes on with the future. So I think the sooner we can sort of, what's the word I want to use? Mr. Chairman, the sooner we can sort of allow ourselves by law to get in touch with these people. So I think going from 3 years to 2 years, I certainly support that. I really think that something has to be done before you let it go, 3 years. So I'm really in favor of this recommendation.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Brunton?
Quickly, one of the things that caught my eye, and like Mayor Luke, there's almost 1,000 properties in there, 922 it says on the, if you add them up, that are having difficulty paying taxes, I assume. Now, I talked to Sue earlier today, and what's that expression, the glass is half full or half empty you use, but I look at it, people are having difficulty, and it's our responsibility, I guess, to set the amount of taxes we collect. So if people are having difficulty, it starts to tell you something, I think. But on the other, if I may, Mr. Chairman, so I'm very clear, though, if somebody's in arrears on their property and we are not obligated to take that property over, am I correct on that? We don't have to acquire the property and try to sell it through tax arrears?
Through the chair, just so I'm clear, there's two things. Do you mean following a failed tax sale? Does the municipality own the property? Or do you mean, are we obligated to pursue all tax arrears 2+ years?
Well, I'm looking at a piece of property, and maybe I'm not explaining it clear, but if there's taxes owing, 3 years you try to sell it if you want, okay, but in the end it doesn't sell. Are we obligated, does that become our property or no? We don't have to assume that property.
Through the chair, no. It would be a council decision to vest that property. Nothing's automatic. So it would be a conscious decision if presented before council to make that decision if they want to vest the property into the ownership of the municipality, but it's not automatic, no.
Okay, well, what I'm looking at is we're doing a lot of these environmental studies now. We seem to be, and what do they call our community grants program. And if a lot of those properties are not satisfactory and the people decide to leave them, I personally don't want to see us stuck looking after them. So if they're private, they don't pay their taxes, they let it ride out. We try to sell it, but we aren't obligated to take it over, correct?
Through the chair, it's my understanding, yes, that's correct. It's not automatic.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything further? No? Okay, I have read the recommendation. It was moved by Mayor Luke, seconded by Councillor Black. Those in favor? That recommendation is carried unanimously. Thank you. And we'll move on to the next item. Page 55, it's the Economic Development Strategy Review. This is the terms of reference, and Mr. Clark Hoskin and Mr. Baird, your report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Council, for the opportunity to present the report today about the Economic Development Strategy Review. It's time for us to review our economic development strategy, which is something communities around the world do on a regular basis. This particular review will focus on looking forward to outcomes in 2024. So we'll be focusing on goals and recommendations that us as municipal government can directly implement, support, or collaborate with other organizations to achieve. So it isn't meant to be a blue sky exercise. It is meant to be something that features tangible, actionable items. On the second page of the report, you can see the key activities that are involved in the review. Specifically, items 6, 10, and 11, and 9 are all related to stakeholder and community consultation. So getting feedback from the community will be very important to create the strategy so that we understand the values of our constituents and create a proper plan. This strategy will be undertaken by staff and volunteers, not by a consultant. Our previous strategy was done by a consultant. This time around, we're going to do it in-house. We feel we have the resources and the expertise in-house to be able to accomplish that over the time period, which is about a year of a process. And also on page 2, you'll see the project oversight team, which will advise the staff who are involved in this. And so we do have representatives from a number of important advisory committees, as well as additional community volunteers, the CEO, CAO, and the general manager of my division. Also, a technical advisory team will be created, and we'll have face-to-face meetings, surveys, open houses, roundtables aimed at particular industry sectors and looking at current issues and trends. And every effort will be made to balance the sectors and issues to gather feedback from all wards of the municipality and all economic sectors within Norfolk County. So this terms of reference isn't complicated. It's contained within the report. So if council approves this report, they're approving the terms of reference of this project, and we'll begin in the next few weeks to get it rolling. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Starting with Councillor Black.
Chairman, thank you very much through you to Clark, and I don't have any problem with your report, and yeah, it's time to renew this, but wondering on the team, the project oversight team, is there a reason why Chamber of Commerce representatives not included, or BIA, or Board of Trade, rather than having like 2 members from TDAB and 2 from Agriculture Advisory Board? Could we not just have 1 of each and include, and that way you could include a chamber member and a BIA or a Board of Trade member, but maybe you've got a reason why they're not there. So, and that's my question, wondering why they're not.
Yeah, through the chair, each of the Chambers of Commerce, Boards of Trade, and BIA will be directly consulted on the review, so we will actually meet with them individually. They will have detailed consultation and ability to provide ideas and feedback and all sorts of suggestions. And each of the Chambers of Commerce and Board of Trade, et cetera, are already existing resource members of our Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Board, so at any time they can attend those meetings and they can provide input. So at the expectation that we'd be trying to keep the oversight team as compact as possible, that's the structure that I came up with.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Further? Councillor Oliver.
Mr. Chairman, I too am going to certainly support the recommendation. I just want to make an observation now, Clark, because I think it's relevant rather than once we get to other business. But I found the Tourism and Economic Development Annual Report 2017 quite helpful when I was looking at what the economic development strategy sort of review will accomplish. So it was, I don't know whether that was just good luck or whether intention rather that you provided us with the annual report right now, but I found it a good document and quite helpful in looking at this review of our strategy. Thank you.
Okay. Further? Need a mover and a seconder for this one? Wells and Black. Move the recommendation that report DCS 1833 be received and that Norfolk County Council approves the terms of reference for the Economic Development Strategy Review Initiative as outlined in report DCS 18-33. Any discussion? Those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to roadside grass cutting. Thank you, Clark, for your work on this, and we'll move on to roadside grass cutting, and this is public work, so I'll pass it on to Lee Robinson.
Through the Chairman to Council, before you is the roadside mowing draft. We reviewed the policy per Council's direction. We are recommending some upgrades to that, which are summarized on page 2 of the report or 62 of the agenda. In summary, most of the changes that we're proposing are mostly of a housekeeping nature. We are recommending that we increase the mowing of medians and channelized islands from 2 to 4 times a year because it'll affect visibility at intersections. Another one of our significant changes is that we're recommending the permanent change that the fall roadside mowing operations be delayed until after October 15th to coincide with the monarch butterflies as well. We are recommending that the Long Point Causeway not receive a summer cut and would only be a cut in the fall to ensure some additional wildlife habitat improvements in that area, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Ms. Robinson. Councillor Black.
Do you actually cut Hastings?
Through the Chairman to Council, yes.
I just wondered why that wouldn't be excluded as well as the causeway for the summertime. Is there a reason why that wasn't? Because I know we had complaints about that.
Through the Chairman to Council, that was the fall cutting. That was the problem with that. If we don't cut Hastings, the road isn't wide enough for 2 vehicles to travel.
Okay. So, and just wondered, we had 2 deputations from that sort of spearheaded this forward, Bernie Solomar and Stuart, Forgot his last name.
Stuart Ross,
No, not Stuart Ross, from Long Point,
McKenzie.
Sorry, Stuart, if you're watching. Yeah, they made the deputations. Were they contacted that this report was coming forward?
Through the chairman to council, we met with them, we had listens to them. They'd indicated to us that all of these other municipalities had implemented things. When we in fact contacted the adjacent municipalities, et cetera, in fact, lots of studies were being done, but they had not been actually implemented, nor were there any plans on the books to implement them. It's a very careful balance between visibility and the ability to see and reducing our liability. And this is, what we're proposing is in accordance with minimum maintenance standards that's set by the province. It ensures that we reduce our liability as long as possible. And the causeway is one of the areas of great concern due to the, I'm just going to say, the unique geographic area of the causeway. We're able to reduce it to a single cut and preserve the wildlife habitat as much as we possibly can and still ensure the safety of the people traveling that section of road.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, thank you for that. Appreciate it. Through you to the clerk or a CAO, do we have some sort of a policy when someone comes with a deputation and then there's a staff report? Are we obligated to inform them when it comes forward to council or committee?
We do not have a policy. We are not obligated. We did, as council instructed, which is to say to interact with the individuals who made the presentation.
Okay.
But this is a staff report giving our best professional advice, and with respect, we work for you. We're giving our advice to you, and this is the best we can come up with. That balances our legal obligations are to cut with the environmental considerations and the needs of the wildlife.
Yeah.
So we have consulted, but the report comes to you.
Yeah, I understand that, but just out of courtesy to people who, not just these two people, but anybody that comes with a deputation of any sort of concern, to notify them that the report's, when the report's coming back, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? Mayor Luke.
Chair, I'd like to move the recommendation at the beginning of 1825.
Okay, seconder? Brunton? Moved by Luke, second by Brunton. That report PW 1825 roadside grass mowing policy review be received as information, and the Norfolk County roadside grass mowing policy be revised to include the recommendations contained in this report. Mayor Luke?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think staff has done an excellent job with this report. I mean, we're not going to please everybody. We're not here to please everybody. We do our best. We're not spending money to cut the sides of roads and the areas at the intersections. We're not here to spend money to do that, to make it look pretty. We're here in the name of public safety. For people that drive the concessions a lot, and I'm not going to say I do it a lot, but I do it a fair amount around the county. There are places where they just have to be cut so you can see to pull out. What staff has done here, in my opinion, they've done their homework. They've consulted with other municipalities of rural nature in this area. And we are not as severe as many of them in the frequency of mows or the height. I like the idea of removing the height and saying twice a year we're going to go through and we're going to make visibility better. And yes, are there some people that are not going to be happy? I get that, but staff has struck a balance here. Let's try it for a year. Let's see how this goes, and I'm sure we'll know whether the phone is ring, ring, ring or not at the end of 2018. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. We did have a mover and a seconder for this. I've got a question for Ms. Robinson. Years ago, back in the 50s and 60s, everybody used to burn their ditches, so they got rid of the garbage, the papers, the cups and everything. And now, before these places are mowed, will anybody be picking up the garbage before it's all cut up and spread across the road? Ms. Robinson.
Through the chairman to council, we do not have an active roadside littering crew engaged to pick up all roadside litter. Obviously, we pick up what is visible, but we do not have sufficient funds or staff to pick up litter in the ditches. Unfortunately, it's one of those things that people shouldn't be throwing anything out in their ditches. We'll remind people that if you do have a ditch at the front of your property and you do collect the garbage, when I used to walk my rural ditches every year in the spring and clean them all up, Norfolk County will be happy to pick up on garbage day, pick up the bags that you leave on the edge of the road as a result of doing that. But unfortunately, we just don't have the funds or the staffing to actively collect roadside garbage on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you. I thought that was going to be your answer. Okay, the recommendation was read. Those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we're going on to, how's our time? 10 to 5. The Integrity Commissioner Code of Conduct Bill C-68 requirements. This report will be delivered by Andy Grizel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This report is in response to the requirements for us to have an integrity commissioner in place by March of next year, 2019, March 1st. Currently, codes of conduct are discretionary, but they won't be as of that time. And also, the integrity commissioner role is going to be expanded to provide advice to council members and board members respecting conflict of interest. So currently, that's not a service that any integrity commissioners provide. In order to do this, we've got proposed to go out for an RFP to look for an integrity commissioner. We've also got a revised code of conduct bylaw for council members and its boards, and as well as a bylaw for the integrity commissioners, which kind of outlines the processes of how they'd work. It's important to have these bylaws in place and have them very thoroughly reviewed. So most of the work has been based upon other municipalities' work, so that we're very consistent in terms of form and format for how our integrity commissioner works. And the reason for this is that a lot of municipalities have had unusual experiences with integrity commissioners where they've spent a lot of money and time investigating very small matters, and we want to avoid that. So the bylaws give us good protection for everybody in that regard. And with that, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
Okay. Thank you, Andy. We'll start with Councillor Black.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just on the public nature of these complaints, like if it's a frivolous complaint, if it's deemed a frivolous complaint, is a record kept on that? There's probably records kept on absolutely everything.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the Integrity Commissioner would keep their own records. So
Okay.
it is an interesting question because we ultimately would get the records eventually, or the next Integrity Commissioner would get them. So they would have their own requirements to keep
Okay.
records, and the same, our records retention bylaw would apply to them as well.
All right, and that would be the same as if the person was exonerated, the record would be kept, I would imagine. What are all complaints made public, or at some point, like, are they public in the beginning or public at the end?
Through you, Mr. Chair. What we've done in this is we've borrowed on what the City of Ottawa has, which is a mediation process. So our hopes are that a lot of the complaints can just be mediated by the Integrity Commissioner rather than a full investigation. That has a potential to really reduce our overall costs for the services, because instead of launching a full investigation and spending all these times interviewing witnesses, they could just sit down with the member in question, the complainant, and a few representatives from the municipality and work it out and just see if there's an easy compromise. So a lot of them, the public reporting wouldn't become a stage until there was a full investigation done, and there'd also be a regular routine annual report from the Integrity Commissioner just on overall complaints.
Okay, and just on the Conflict of Interest Act, so I get this quite often from the general public. They wonder why I don't complain to somebody about somebody having a conflict of interest, and I always say, you know, you need to hire your own lawyer, and even myself or fellow colleagues, like, do you go to a lawyer? I've spent like $600 once on a lawyer. So can the general public go to the Integrity Commissioner and ask for a ruling on conflict of interest, or can a counselor go and ask for advice? Do I have a conflict of interest on, or pecuniary interest in this, direct or indirect? And really that nebulous area is this indirect pecuniary interest thing. So can all of those questions be taken to the Integrity Commissioner?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, they all can be taken to the Integrity Commissioner. The Integrity Commissioner role, it's unclear now because it's new legislation as of March 1st of 2019. It's going to be a bit unusual because they also will have the ability to investigate potential conflicts on their own volition. So everything, the public complaints, all that council members have to do to get the free legal advice on a conflict of interest is write down what their request is. It has to be done in writing, and that's just to keep, it's something that we're definitely, it's in the legislation, we're definitely going to hold you to, because it can help keep our cost in line. So we just want to keep the records of who's asking.
And would the decision from an Integrity Commissioner, if say myself as a counselor went and he made a ruling, would that stand up in court? Like, would it hold any water if you were challenged on it? That, oh yeah, you know, if you went, it's, you know, the same as going to a lawyer. You know, if I went to a lawyer, it's like, hey, I spent this money, I asked him, that was his best advice. Would the value of his decision be the same as a lawyer? Hold up in a court if you were challenged?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not entirely sure. I know the one thing I do know is that the Integrity Commissioner, if you took advice from the Integrity Commissioner and then you did the opposite of what the advice was, there is a potential that the Integrity Commissioner can take you to court. And the municipality will be paying for that. So, but the CAO is much better to answer.
On that topic, I'm going to ask a lawyer to answer your question, Councillor Black.
Good news, you've got two. But I'm not at the mic right now. The legislation's drafted with specific language in it, really for two purposes in that regard. Depending on the nature of a future legal proceeding, be it civil or criminal, they have different standards and burdens of proof. But in the one realm, there's a defense called officially induced error, which is whether a reasonably informed person provided a set of information from someone in authority had a reasonable belief following those instructions that they were acting appropriately. So the legislation sort of designed to offer that as a formal defense to someone who follows it in a certain set of legal proceedings. And then beyond that, as a general proposition, our whole civil system is predicated on the test of what a reasonable individual would do in a given case. And the point of our system, of the drafted proposed Norfolk system, is to allow someone access to an expert to ask a question and, given an answer, act reasonably with the results of that. And the fact you go through the efforts of asking the question, you think about it, and an expert gives thoughtful advice and response, is, one would assume, would lead to an inference that one had acted reasonably, provided, as Mr. Grosel said, you weren't told that A is fine and then go and do B, or you weren't told that A is absolutely not okay and then you go and do A. Obviously that wouldn't meet the test of acting reasonably. And as broad propositions, that's about as much legal advice as we can give at this point in time.
Okay, and thank you. Just one last thing. I would like to thank the CAO for saving the county money and going to other communities like the county of Lambton and looking at their information. So I thank David for doing that.
Yeah, that has been noted already, Councillor Black. So. Okay.
I couldn't help it. Sorry, David.
My apologies, I stole that.
Okay.
Councillor Oliver.
Very much, Mr. Chairman. My questions relate to, I guess, page 72 of our agenda, which is the proposal for the RFP evaluation in part for the Integrity Commissioner. I understand that we'll put out an RFP and see what we get back. There's nothing in, on page 72, in other words, in the evaluation methodology, relating to the cost of the proposal from whoever it is that submits it to us.